Welcome to Awaken the Mind, the NLP and Hypnosis Guide, hosted by David Youhas.
You're listening to Awaken the Mind, the NLP and Hypnosis Guide, a podcast that inspires the curious to the professional to discover meaningful content and pursue their passions. My name is David Youhas, and I'm a master NLP practitioner and hypnotist, best known for losing over 100 pounds and running 6 marathons in 2 years. And I'm sitting down with hypnotists, NLP practitioners, and coaches to talk about their process, the lessons they've learned, and how to make an impact in the lives of others.
Happy New Year. This is our first podcast of the year. Today we're going to talk about the book, Divorce Party, 8 Ultimate Keys to Thriving After All the Guests Leave. Please subscribe to our channel and like the show if you found it of value. Or please comment and let us know future ideas that you would like to see on the show. Now let's talk about the value of Divorce Party. A lot of people know me more in the hypnosis and NLP world, but my roots are actually in coaching, and I am a relationship coach. This book is over 10 years in the making. It wasn't until last year when my youngest turned 21 that I decided now is a good time to publish this book, and there's been enough time between when I went through my divorce and the children growing up. Who is this book for? This book is based upon a coaching tool called The Wheel of Life. This book would be of value for people that are divorced, divorcing, separated, even breakups, and if you're having marriage problems, because this will go over the 8 key areas that everybody has in their life. And if somebody is having a problem in their life, I guarantee you it's one of these 8 areas. Divorce Party is designed to assist both men and women to quickly identify the most significant, challenging areas of their life. Then it's designed to then jump you directly to that chapter to get you started on improving and healing in those areas. Quickly begin to take action and see that there is hope and that you absolutely can take control of your life. Divorce Party is a unique troubleshooting, triaging book that identifies the 8 key areas of everyone's lives, and you identify where it is hurting the most. The book's designed for quick action steps to create quick change. This book reveals how to transform and self-empower your life from what you don't want to what you want instead. I wanted to kind of give a little disclaimer on what the book is not. Because the title is Divorce Party, it sounds like a celebration, and it is absolutely not a celebration. The original book title was going to be Divorce Triage, which does not sound too attractive. I decided to change it to Divorce Party, and it's really more like if you can imagine the horrible party gone wrong. You know, everything was planned for this incredible party, and then people showed up that weren't invited, and the day after, there's this horrible mess that has to be cleaned up. Something's burning, the drywall's punched in, furniture's flipped over, the fish bowl and the fish is on the floor. I use humor as a way to deal with life. I've always been that way. I don't mean to offend anybody by making light of divorce, because it's definitely not something to take lightly, and it's not something that's funny at all. But the title specifically is more like the mess left over that has to be cleaned up, because after a divorce, there is a horrible mess. It is the rare exception that 2 people go through a divorce and they're like, wow, that was awesome. Probably almost zero. So I just wanted to, again, just really clarify that this is definitely not a celebration. The book also is not about making somebody wrong. There is a coaching saying about cause equals effect. And we are either at cause of our life or we are at the effect of life happening to us. And it's a choice. You get to be on either side of that equation of cause equals effect. When somebody comes to me for coaching, I listen for what I call victim language. And victim language is it's somebody else's fault. And I'm not saying that, again, I don't want to offend anybody around. There are horrible things, bad things that happen in the world, and we can possibly be involved in that or around that, and it affects us. The most important thing to realize is that we don't control life happening. We do control what happens next. There are two quotes that I have in this book from one of my favorite books from Viktor E. Frankl. He's the author of A Man's Search for Meaning, a psychologist and also a Holocaust survivor. And he really sums this up beautifully. And the quote is, "The one thing that you can't take away from me is the way I choose to respond to what you do to me. The last of one's freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given circumstance." And again, that was Viktor Frankl. And then there's one other powerful quote from his, and he has many. "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Viktor E. Frankl. That really sums up what I'm trying to say about either being at cause or effect. There's this space that we get to choose what we do with what happens to us. Moving forward, talking more about what's in the book, it's basically 10 chapters. And the first chapter is the introduction on how to use this book. I intentionally designed this book in such a way that you might be in the middle of a crisis if you're going through a divorce and you want to get results fast. So I designed this book in such a way that you can very quickly know how to use this book, assess where the biggest challenges are in your life, and you probably already know what those are. But if not, there's a tool in the book that will assess your challenges and growth opportunities. And then you're able to go to those different chapters, whichever chapters will help you the most. And the chapters are filled with information, resources, exercises, and action steps for you to take quickly to start seeing a difference in your life. The second chapter is the actual assessment tool called the Wheel of Life. And that is a coaching tool that's been around since the 60s, 70s. Paul J. Meyer, who was the founder of the Success Motivation Institute in 1960. And he really was a pioneer in coaching and leadership. A quote from him is, "What you vividly imagine, ardently desire, sincerely believe, and enthusiastically act upon must inevitably come to pass." Paul J. Meyer. It's a very powerful coaching tool, and this covers the key areas that are in everyone's lives. And they also use this with business coaching. The tool, it's interesting because when I first used this tool, it's so simple, but it does something that's really interesting and fascinating. It's zooming out from your life. You know, we can be so close to the trees that we can only see the bark and maybe not even see the tree, and definitely not see the forest. So this is a tool that allows you to disassociate from your life, what they call the 40,000 foot view of your life, zooming out and seeing your life as a whole. And it asks you about these 8 key areas in your life. And they are spirituality, health, finances, self-development, relationships, environment, career, fun, and recreation. And when I first started putting this book together, I felt like I needed to put some of these chapters before others. I went back and forth thinking, okay, maybe this was just my experience and this isn't going to apply to everybody. But I did find some things that I wanted to put first, and I explained that in the book, and I'll explain a little bit about that right now. The chapter 3 is the first of one of the key areas, and that's spirituality. So that would be considered key 1. Originally, the first key area was going to be health, because without health, does anything else even matter? And I believed that. And I kept postponing this chapter on spirituality. Actually, it became one of the last chapters that I wrote. And as I was journeying into that chapter, I realized a couple things. It was so important in my life, And I truly believe that it's important in everybody's life. Again, another disclaimer, I'm Christian. I was raised Catholic. I consider myself a Christian now. I'm not a practicing Catholic. But I didn't want to isolate anybody. I have some atheist friends, and I've seen them do some incredible acts of kindness and giving and empathy towards others, hurting, giving and receiving love. And I think that's what I was struggling with so much about this chapter on spirituality. Also, some deeper things that were going on with me that are explained in the book, how spirituality actually saved my life. To not give everything away, but just to talk about my view on what spirituality is that can be inclusive with everybody, even atheists, and that it's so important in everybody's lives, from the agnostics to the atheists and the believers, the Christians, and everybody else included, that spirituality is about love. And if you go to the beginning of life, a baby that is not held eventually will die without being held, without being shown love. That's how important this chapter is on spirituality. I don't try to make anybody drink Kool-Aid. I don't beat you over the head with a Bible. I will say this, and I request your forgiveness. I do include a lot of interesting scriptures throughout the book that are related to specifically what we're talking about, whether it's, health, relationships, finance, personal growth, environment, career, fun and recreation even. I will include scripture specifically for those different areas of our lives. And the reason I do that is that the Bible has been around for a really long time. There's wisdom in that book. The cool thing about it is that you'll find it is directly relatable with you this day, with what's going on in your life. And the cool thing is, you can see the outcomes of people who went one road or the other road. Again, this isn't about making anybody wrong for, not believing. I do believe that we all believe in love. If you don't, then there's bigger challenges beyond this book. Loving yourself is one of the most important things, and I talk about that in the chapter on spirituality. Everything outside of us is only a reflection of what we see in ourselves. And if we don't love ourselves, it's not possible to love anybody else. I was raised beaten by nuns, literally. Thank goodness they got me straight. This self-love is so important. We're raised, that's selfish. There's almost this guilt and shame kind of thing. And I talk about that in the book as well, in the chapter on spirituality, that there's this kind of feeling like, you shouldn't take care of yourself first. And that's bullshit, because if you don't love yourself first, and somebody told me this when I was at the lowest point in my life, you're not worth anything to anybody else if you don't love yourself. Plain and simple. You can't be worth anything to anybody else. And that includes your kids, if you have kids. That includes your loved one. That includes your friends. You have to be able to love yourself and care for yourself first, so that you can reflect that love out into the world. So enough on the chapter on spirituality, but I do invite everyone is welcome in there, because spirituality is about love. The next thing that originally was the first chapter of the key areas, which is chapter 4, is on health. And that was something, going through my divorce, I could see that was something I really had to focus on. I had gotten really overweight. I was suffering at work. I was suffering in my relationships. When your health starts to go, it's not a good thing. I started walking, and then I started jogging, and then I started running. And eventually my godbrother asked me, well, how far are you running? And I said, I don't know. I'm not measuring it. He goes, well, measure it. The incredible thing was, I was already running 5Ks every day and didn't even realize it, because he was wanting me to start a 5K race. And I'm like, I can't do that. I mean, it seemed so unrealistic, talking about limiting beliefs. I had this belief I couldn't do it, and I was already doing it, and I was doing it every day. The chapter on health is how that happened. The interesting thing to me about the health chapter is this has been a quest of mine that also kind of led up to why this book was written, because so many people came up to me wanting to know how I did it. And I described in the book how people would get, literally pissed at me, because I would say, well, you eat less, you exercise more. And I was just naturally driven to want to do that. I didn't have to try. It was actually easy. At that time, it was effortless. It was something I wanted to do. Now, today, it's a big challenge for me to even think about running, but then it was effortless. And I talk a little bit about the motivation that goes on. And again, going back to scripture, why is it that I don't do what I want to do and I do what I don't want to do? Thousands of years of scriptures talking about our conscious and our unconscious mind, parts integration. It's fascinating to me how, especially after going through my NLP training, the Bible, it's a whole different read and very fascinating. I talk about my health journey, losing over 100 pounds. I went from 287 down to, at one time, 167. People were asking me if I was sick. I was monitoring my body fat, and I kept it within, I think it was like 12% to 16% was considered healthy. And I was well within those means, but I had lost a lot of weight. I actually had difficulty keeping the weight on, not something I'd ever experienced before. It was effortless to lose all that weight. I was highly motivated. I also learned about what I needed to do with consuming more calories and making sure that I was hydrated, the important things, and I include all that in the book. Chapter 5 is the third key area, which is relationships. I'm actually a relationship coach. My initial training was what you would call a life coach, or it was a performance coach certification that I got. And then I went on to relationship coaching and NLP and hypnosis. All these chapters are important. Obviously, it would be wonderful if you could work things out. This chapter would be of great value. You can see the equation that is going on with a relationship. There's 3 areas in all relationships. That's communication, commitments, and trust. And so if there's a problem in a relationship, it's in one of those 3 key areas. Also, I talk about rapport as the foundation of communication, but the 3 legs of a relationship are communication. We communicate or we don't communicate effectively. We then make promises, and we either keep those promises and commitments or we break them. And if we keep them, we build trust. And if we break them, then we tear down trust. And trust is harder to rebuild afterwards. But it can absolutely be rebuilt. And out of all of my training, I say this again and again, it's this important. And if there's one thing you get out of all that I talk about, all that I do, all of my training and the educational materials that I put out, the most important thing is rapport. You don't even have a conversation. You don't have effective communication if you do not have rapport. And I talk about how simple it is to build rapport. The challenge is that when we get out of rapport, we don't work on rebuilding the rapport. And I talk about that in this book, this chapter on relationships, whether it's with your wife, your ex-wife, or your kids. It is such a valuable chapter on relationships because the times that we live in today, relationships are not what they used to be. It used to be you would go to somebody's house and be with them, and now everything is on our phone, and we got our heads down buried in our phone, and we're not even looking at people. How important it is to have the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic feedback when you're talking with somebody, because when we get in trouble in relationships with rapport and these other areas, a lot of times it's that we're texting or we're emailing, and those are the most inefficient ways to communicate. Next chapter is on finance. Wow, this was a big one for me. I remember in literally the darkest days of my life, the power was shut off, the house was being foreclosed on, and I was considering suicide. I couldn't even fathom how I was going to pull my head out of my ass to turn this all around. I literally remember feeling as if I painted myself into a corner, and I realized I didn't even have a place that I could visit my kids. And that shame and that embarrassment was one of the most painful things initially. Later, I talk about how, even to this day, it haunts me. No matter how much the divorce hurt me personally, it was nothing in comparison to what my kids went through, as well as witnessing their hurt going through this and wishing there was some way that I could change it, and I could not. So I talk about that in the book as well. But the finances, I found out about this David Ramsey guy. Thank God I found this guy. I had been traveling after September 11th back and forth from Illinois down to Paducah, Kentucky, and Cape Girardeau, Missouri. And I was living out of a hotel, and I would visit my family on the weekend. It was really a difficult time, I would listen to this David Ramsey guy, and the stories and examples that he gives, if you listen to his show, first of all, you'll feel a whole lot better about your situation, but you'll also start to develop the concept of what is needed to be done to get yourself out. And I talk extensively on the chapter on finances. I've gone through the David Ramsey Financial Peace University program 7 times at least, I believe 7 times. Every time I go through it, I learn something new. I actually have purchased the training DVDs that you would see in one of the classes, and it is just such a valuable class. This is what they should be teaching in kindergarten, how to do a budget. If you have any challenges with your finances, look into David Ramsey Financial Peace University or listen to his programs and get involved in it, because there is an incredible support group with that you can turn everything around with your finances to be successful with moving into the green of your finances and becoming financially free, debt-free. It's totally possible and quicker than you think. The next area is personal growth, and wow, I'm all about that, personal growth. I've been listening to Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, my beloved Jim Rohn, and so many more since around in high school. Also, Stephen Covey, David Allen. These are some of the incredible greats in the self-development world. And just got back from Tony Robbins, I walked on fire. I'm a fire walker. Personal growth is something that's important to me. But there's a whole bunch of other things that are going on with personal growth. Motivation plays into that. There are tools and techniques in this chapter, as well as all the others, SMART goals and the well-formed outcomes, and to create a plan on how to pursue your goals and achieve them. The next chapter is environment. When I first learned about the area of environment, I have to be honest with you, it didn't seem like it was that important to me. It is very important. If you could imagine, if you live next door to a nuclear power plant and at 2 o'clock in the morning, the alarms went off and it was just a test, you might end up having problems sleeping. But our environment plays an incredible role, our state. I mean, think about when you go on vacation and that change in environment, how incredible that feels. It changes your state. Think about when you need to get that homework assignment done. You go to the library, that environment supports you getting that done. There's less distractions. So our environment plays a big role into our successes and our personal growth, and also all these other areas. It's been said that we become like the 5 people we hang around with, and often those are related to an environment. So, for example, if you're wanting to quit smoking, you might realize that your friends have an environment, and when you're in that environment, you're more apt to smoke also. It might be a bar, it might be a certain restaurant where they allow smoking. So the environment plays an incredible role into your success and who you are and who you are becoming. And the cool thing is, on an unconscious level, if you're not being intentional about it, life is happening to you. But when you are intentional about it and you set yourself up for successes, think about aligning yourself with successful people and putting yourself in those environments. And the interesting thing is, you become like them, whether you like it or not. So, that parents, we don't want our kids hanging around the wrong environments because we're worried they're going to get into trouble. If you can choose the environments, why not set yourself up for success? This is an easy one. That's the beautiful thing about this. When you start to say, okay, well, what is it that I want? And I'm just going to throw myself into the future, into those environments. And it's just going to be osmosis. I'm going to soak all that in and become successful. The next chapter is on career. Zig Ziglar said that money isn't everything, but it's right up there with oxygen. Career supports your income. And if you are challenged with your finances, and or your career, it's going to create drama in the rest of the areas of your life because you're not going to feel that safety net. What are some things that you can do proactively with your work to let them know, hey, this is what's going on? You don't want to become the person that is taking advantage of the system, but there are some things that you can do that if you show that you're putting in effort to do your best and to care for yourself and to show up to work, then they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt usually. But there's specific things mentioned in the chapter on career on how to reach out to the human resource department as well as your supervisor to let them know what's going on. And the last chapter 10 is fun and recreation. And my favorite quote is, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. I need to do some fun and recreation more. There are studies on the importance of laughter, the natural feel-good chemicals, the dopamines gets released into our bodies. This is a good self-medication as opposed to alcohol and drugs, right? The fun and recreation is important because this recharges our batteries. And going through a divorce, if you're challenged with your finances, then this could be an area where you think that there's not much that you can do. However, I offer lots of ideas of how you can do staycations or entertain yourself in ways that cost absolutely nothing, to join groups that meet up and do things to where you can feel part of a community. That sums up all the different chapters in the book, Divorce Party. The last 3 areas are appendixes. Appendix A is quotes and scriptures. I had a hard time picking the quotes because there are so many. Normally somebody will have a chapter and there'll be one quote. I've got some I'm embarrassed to admit there might be 4 or 5 because they just apply. The book is filled with lots of quotes and of course the scripture I talked about earlier. But what I did was that I summed that all up in the Appendix A, quotes and scriptures. So if you've ever tried to find a quote in a book, good luck. That's why I put this appendix in here, so you could go through and see exactly where that quote is at, as well as what chapter to go back to. Appendix B are the different tools in this book, the Wheel of Life, the 3 Ps, SMART goals, well-formed outcomes, and also a very valuable tool, difficult conversations, which I'm guessing you're probably going to have some with going through a divorce, whether it's with your ex or with your kids or with work or with friends or with whoever. The difficult conversation is a way to be intentional about what it is, figuring out what is the challenge and how to move forward with that challenge. I would also like to just say that my ex-wife and I actually get along really well now. It took a lot of work for both of us, both sides. She's remarried. I'm very happy for her. She is an excellent mother. I couldn't think of a better mother for my kids. My ex-wife and I are able to work together even still, even though now the kids are 21, 23, 25, 27. We're able to still, the parenting continues. We're able to still work together and get on the same page to talk about a discussion around something going on with one or more of the kids, sometimes between the kids, but we're able to get on the same page. I'm blessed and thankful to her. I also want to mention real quick that we have a special. This book is presently published as an ebook, and it's on Amazon Kindle, and it's going through a 5-day promotion, January 5th, which is Sunday, through January 9th, which is a Thursday. And you can get that book absolutely free on Amazon Kindle. And I'll include the link here on how to find that. But also, if you just go to Amazon and you Google Divorce Party David Youhas, or just Divorce Party, it's like the second or third one shown there. I really am excited about this book. I really feel it's a good book to help others get through going through a divorce and moving forward in their life. After you read the book, please give us a review on Amazon Kindle. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for joining us today with Awaken the Mind, hosted by David
Relax.
Youhas.
Awaken the mind, you need to understand. If you can't, you must, and if you must, you can. Now that I got you, let me put you in a trance. Got you feeling hypnotic, your mind, let me massage it. Your thoughts are getting quiet, your stress subsiding. You starting to see images, but it ain't no mirages. Think it's time to calibrate. Take a breath and concentrate. Get into your subconscious, time to feel the energy, the brain waves, let's go deep into your memory. Beware of self, let the worries melt. All you see is you and you don't see no one else. Auditory digital, talking to yourself. It might seem bizarre, a feeling you never felt. This is your time to shine. Awaken the mind, the NLP and hypnosis guide. Yeah.